right, you found the video. This is a short walkthrough of my current compositing setup because I've been trying to get this look of kind of an illustrated style in Blender, and it's got a lot of moving parts, and so instead of building the toon shader setup inside the shader nodes, I have figured out a way to do it just in the compositor. I have this node group I've been working on, but this is what it looks like. Basically, this red render layers node has all of the different passes that I've enabled over here, and then I've made a node group that I've just plugged all this stuff into an input. If you're not familiar with the node group stuff, that's another side quest, but I'm doing that just to make it easier to append it into different files as I'm working on different shots. But anyway, pressing tab to go into my group, and now, so we'll follow the diffuse color into, let's see, the only reason this little alpha over node exists is so that I can combine my grease pencil with the diffuse color before I treat it. The multiply is a color mix node that I've given myself just to be able to tint the color if I want to. You know, like warm things up a little bit, cool things off a little bit, but for now I'll just leave that as totally white. Or I guess just turn down the factor to 0. Now, the other thing we have coming out of this render pass group input is the diffuse direct, and that is my shadow pass. So I wanted to be able to have different light sources, and so that's a trick I learned from the Lightning Boy studio videos that they were doing on this kind of toon shader look. But basically I've assigned my sun to be red, and I have another light here that's totally green, and that is my, oh, you're not going to be able to see that, where is it? That's my screen color. So if I were to get rid of that, I have this computer that this character is working on, and I wanted the face to be you know, lit by the computer screen. So basically, don't get distracted. The green light is controlling the computer screen, the red lights are controlling what the sun does. So you could hypothetically have up to 3 different light sources in this setup, and for my preferences, if you have more than 3 light sources, you're probably getting too complicated, but that's a conversation for another day. Let's go back to our establishing. So the red color, which is because our sun is red, coming from the diffuse direct, goes into a color ramp, and this is where the magic happens, because usually, I'm going to just quick go on a tangent, when people say toon shader, what they usually do is they say, look at this, when you watch a 2D cartoon, it has hard edges, so I'm just gonna turn on constant and crank this around, and now it looks like a cartoon. As someone who spent a lot of time painting, I say, like, they did not have hard shadow edges because they wanted to. They had hard shadow edges because they needed to. And since we have all of this nice form shadow stuff happening, there's no reason to go totally constant with that shadow edge. I just leave it on linear like that and just dial it in. You know, you're basically increasing the contrast. Let's see. So here's my original shadow pass, and then I just drag this over and say, oh yep, I've destroyed most of the variation in the lights all the way up to like there. Let's just try it out. So anyway, that's my, it's more of like a removing detail without messing with the whole thing. So that's this one path, is just saying take the light information from the red channel, which is my sun, crunch it down so it's more contrasty, and then we are going to do a little mix node here. So we're using this black and white image as a factor in this mix color node. The B input is going all the way back to my diffused color, right? It's just whatever the texture colors are. And the A input is going into this place where I have multiplied my diffused color by A color. Is this gonna update automatically or not? Interesting. For some reason it didn't like that there was a separate RGB node, but here we go. So you see how I change this color? It changes my multiplied shadow. And this is a spot where I will get more involved when I start to do a final composite, because I've got specific ideas about, you know, what different colors do in the shadow instead of just treating it all with one color. But for now, that's what that does. Is okay. So moving on. So combine everything here. Just a quick go over. So the screen light is the same thing. Let's see if I can find where this computer screen, I have a camera on it here. Green channel coming down. I've crunched this a lot. But still, yeah, still very soft. There's so many settings in this computer. Like if you turn up the power, it does something. If you mess with the exposure, it does something. Change the size, it does something. I have no idea. I'll keep playing with that later. But for now, all we need to know is that it's exactly the same setup as the shadow. I'm just mixing this color with the diffuse color. This one's just, yeah. To make it a more red version of the texture paint color. Is this even making sense? And this one is just a little mix node that says, yes, I would like to combine my treated thing. So many mix nodes, it's hard to wrap my head around how to do this, but basically you're saying, okay, take the first image that I made, which is things being affected by the sun, and combine it with the second setup I made, which is things turning red when they get hit by the light, and stick them together. I don't know what else to say about that. I'm so sorry. Emission, this is a simple one. I'm just taking the couple of things that are emission textures, and I've given it a blur just to make it look like it's got a little bit of, I don't know, over exposure to it, makes it look brighter than it is. And so for things like these lights on top of the tower, they're not going to be affected by that shadow pass. We just have the emission pass going, you can just go straight into the mix node. Oh, got lost here. All right, atmospheric perspective. This is probably the fun one. Let's see. So yeah, basically saying the result that I have so far goes into this mix node where it gets mixed with this color. So if we were to just look at this, it would say, yep, there's the color we're mixing, there's the render we have. The factor is never gonna get more than 50%. And we're gonna mix this result with the unatmosphere pass that goes straight into this mix node. And the factor of whether to display the atmosphere-y version or the normal version is this black and white map. So you see, like in the camera, this foreground has basically no atmospheric perspective, and then back here you've got more. So that's the atmosphere. Hopefully that's not that's, yeah, just a couple nodes. Okay, the sky. This one's the most simple. I made another little group here, but basically taking the result, taking the alpha output, which is just saying, you know, anything that doesn't have a model in it is going to be all black. Pop in, oh no, this looks confusing. I think all I did was ask Claude how to set up a procedural gradient, you know? So gradient texture, I'm rotating it, scaling it, transforming it, and then another color ramp, because those things are always important. And then that's the factor for this mixed color, which I've chosen my two, you know, horizon color and not horizon color, I call it the higher part of the sky. And so that's gonna be anything that is an alpha, please display the sky. Anything that's not an alpha, please display the existing image. So that's all the sky does, is just say, if it's an alpha channel, let's just throw a matte painting back there. So that would be handy if you were doing any sort of just normal compositing for a background. And finally, we have this little group I'm calling post-process, which is just the fun, tiny stuff, just giving everything a teeny bit of blur. And then the Kuwahara, I love playing around with this. It's super slow, but I realized the classic version kind of does what I want. Basically, let's crank this up to see. Oh yeah, you get this really messy, whoa. Like, yeah, this is just kind of, I've been looking for some kind of painterly effect, and this is the fastest, cheapest way that I've found to just say, you know, the details, when they get too small, I don't want to think about them. So it's super nice, nice one to play around with. I'm sure it looks different in the render. You don't always get the most accurate view. That's pretty much it so far. So I have basically the whole reason for doing this, let's see if I can quick explain this, is that it's much easier to change settings in the compositor than it is to, you know, you have something that's this complicated with a bunch of characters and objects and whatever. I don't want to have to go into every single material setting and change the shader stuff every time I want to change a color. So, for example, let's say I want this scene to be more of a sunset scene. I can go to my color. Oh yeah, get a nice warm thing there. I'm going to go to my shadow and maybe make it a little bit darker. I don't know, it's hard to tell until I play with the sky. What does a sky do for a sunset? I don't know. Is it like, it's where the contents of my brain are not helping much. And then I would, oh my golly, I don't even look at the, yeah, let's stay in the camera. I don't even want to see the, but so let's go back out to my color. I'm going to make this even more intense. And then most importantly, the sun is going to be lower. So I'll go RXXX to just, whoa. Yeah, figure out. And maybe it's compositing. Maybe that shadow color is lighter because there's less contrast now that the sun's going down. Anyway, yeah, see, all of a sudden you're playing with a totally different mood by just tweaking a couple of settings. So that's the dream. Oh,